Great. So hello everyone and welcome to today's Red Hat Automation and Management webinar. My name is Nina Lönnqvist and I work for Arrow ECS Finland as the Red Hat Partner Development Manager. And Arrow ECS is the Red Hat distributor in the Nordics and the Baltic countries. And we are here to assist you with selling Red Hat solutions. So for example, Ansible, among others. As well as to help you to forward the Red Hat message to the end users. Well, and we also offer different marketing activities and sales enablement. So please don't hesitate to contact me if you have any questions that come to mind after this webinar. And we'll be organizing these types of online webinars once a month in the future as well. So, and the next one will be in December on the 11th. And I know that, well, Red Hat's presenter Josh will probably mention this as well. So, but without further ado, I'll let Josh take over now. So please enjoy the webinar.
Thank you very much, Nina. Thank you for having us here today. Welcome to the Automation and Management webinar. And thank you for waiting for everyone. Good morning to you all, or good afternoon there, I think it is. I will do my best to not speak too quickly, as I know I have a habit of doing that. We're not all native English speakers, so feel free to interrupt me and ask me to slow down if I do get a little bit excited and carried away. So without further ado, let's jump into it. So our agenda for today, we're going to explore the concepts within the industry behind automation, what automation is, why we do it. Then we're going to look at Ansible. Ansible is Red Hat's automation engine. We'll discuss some of the kind of the key points behind that, what your customers are interested in, how to sell those sorts of things. We'll look at which customers need automation, see where it fits in, as well as looking at the differences between Ansible and Ansible Tower, which I know is one thing that some of our partners, the lines get a bit blurred with. We're also going to talk about automation and where this meets management. They're two very closely connected concepts, so it's good to discuss that. As well as Red Hat Satellite, what Red Hat Satellite does, how it works, how it fits in with the other management pieces of our portfolio. And then we're going to look briefly at Red Hat Insights and Ansible Tower working together. And then I shall leave some time at the end for Q&A. But for anything I've covered in the webinar or any other connected topic, really questions around and didn't see answers to in the webinar. So, what is automation and why do we do it? So with automation in the IT industry, people often think that this is going to mean something very complicated, a big expansive system where everything works together, everything is automated. We assume that it's a very difficult task to undergo actually creating a system that works like this. But really, automation starts very small. It starts very simple. The definition of automation, if something is automatic, it requires little to no human input to automate something. It's just the process of making something automatic. That's all it is in IT. When we think of automation, this complicated idea that we have, we picture this big system, but really the core concept behind automation is to take one piece of your services or your infrastructure at a time and automate it such that we can drive a few key points, a few key things through our infrastructure. The things that customers are looking to gain from automation when they adopt automation, the drivers behind adoption, it really starts with efficiency, repeatable tasks. You'll see system administrators, the customer might have a team of 10. 5 of these systems administrators spend all their time repeating the same tasks over and over again. And they might be very simple, but they're time consuming. To improve efficiency, this is really the place automation starts. We'll see customers say, why are we doing this over and over again? We can automate it. We can write code that will handle this job for us. This will free up half of our workforce to actually focus on other things, to build new services, to innovate and increase the revenue income from existing services. And in doing so, increasing the efficiency of members of staff, we're lowering cost. So this is where automation starts. These are the reasons people first pick it up. Other key points around automation, the reason people want to automate things within their infrastructure and their services, standardization. So if you automate something 99% of the time, that something is going to play out the same way every time. So there's less variability in what customers are seeing and the outcome of their infrastructure and the changes they make to their services. And with that reduced variability, we see reduced risk. Customers in their environments, these are production environments, a lot of the time they're very risk averse. Actually reducing risk is quite a significant selling point for your customers. Having more structured procedures, having things automated within an environment, it makes it easier to make members of the operations teams accountable for changes that they make, because changes outside of the set schema are much easier to then track. And this is another point that helps to reduce risk for our customers. And that's really the key drivers. It's efficiency, it's reduced cost, and it's reduced risk. So these are the reasons we do automation. Where does Red Hat fit in? What is Ansible? So Ansible, it's Red Hat's automation engine. The key point with Ansible is that it's very simple. Ansible allows operators, your customers, to define automation through a language that's very human readable. It's easy to understand, it's easy to pick up. It's a language called YAML. And this simplicity, it really reduces the barrier to customers adopting automation for the first time. Not all customers are IT specialists. A lot of customers nowadays who are really adopting automation for the first time are not IT shops. They're not specialists in what they're doing. So having this reduced barrier to entry with the very simple tooling is quite a thing for them. So no special coding skills required at all. Ansible allows customers to define their automation in YAML, very simple, almost anyone can do it. And then the power of the engine is that it can interpret that very simple input and create a very powerful, potentially, output. Being agentless, Ansible can connect to the target infrastructure that you're looking to automate, or the services and platforms that you're looking to control and automate without having to install an agent on the endpoint. It connects using SSH for Linux-based machines and WinRM for the Windows infrastructure. These are very secure connections using traditional credentials. And the point here is that you can deploy anything with Ansible. Anything you can do over SSH or WinRM, which really is anything on the server at all, you can do with Ansible, but you can define this in a very simple, human-readable language. So with this reduced barrier to entry and this increased power, we see again the sorts of efficiency and the reduced risk that customers are looking to gain from their automation. So who needs automation? Now, I think in the industry we've probably all heard the term digital transformation. I'm not looking to play buzzword bingo with you all here, but digital transformation is really the reason that everyone needs automation. Okay, so for the first time, we're seeing that the customers who've not had to invest heavily in their IT infrastructure and their platforms before, they're now really having to assess how they can support their developers and their services in such a way that they can actually accelerate their revenue growth. The whole thing behind digital transformation that's really come from the history of DevOps and how this has accelerated customer engagements through their IT is that customer services are now closer to the direct stream of revenue than they've ever been before. And customers really need their IT infrastructure and their operations teams and their developers to help them differentiate themselves from the competition through their services. So services are now needing to be faster and more highly available with more feature velocity, regular updates than ever before. And with this comes larger infrastructure, but also greater complexity to that infrastructure. So all these customers who've previously been able to get away with very, very simple internal infrastructure. Maybe they'll outsource some of it. Are finding now that in order to stay relevant and to compete against their competitors, they're needing to really step up their operations. And it's at this point that we see people really looking at automation for the first time. These customers who have these large, very complex environments, then they sometimes need a little bit more than just base automation. This will bring us on to Ansible Tower. So Ansible Tower, it builds on top of the kind of the simple, powerful, and agentless base of Ansible Engine. It still has Ansible Engine underneath, but we're adding really three key principles on top of that. The first is delegation, as you see here. So with the delegation within Ansible Tower, what we're providing to customers is the role-based access that allows customers to have a self-service model. If we talk again about the fact that with services in your customers' environments being so close to the stream of revenue and having to be very competitive, then the revenue stream is very influenced by how efficient people's developers are. So being able to provide self-service to developers has an immediate and quite significant effect on their developer efficiency. When we're talking about self-service, it might be something as simple as, say, your developers they need to deploy a new service. They've written an application, it's ready for production, but they don't have any infrastructure yet. You could actually give your developers through Ansible Tower the permissions to run a select subset of your Ansible automation. So automation within Ansible, we call these playbooks. These are really the files that the automation is defined within. You can take an Ansible playbook that says, deploy me a new server. This new server is going to be the base for your developer's new application. And now with Ansible Tower, you have the option to allow developers to deploy this for themselves. So previously, where developers may have had to put in a request for new infrastructure for a new server, they would have had to wait for the request to be acknowledged, for the operations team to go ahead and deploy this server for them. With Ansible Tower, you're able to define all the automation through Ansible Engine, and then Tower can present the opportunity to developers to actually order this for themselves. So beyond just the increased efficiency that we're seeing for the developer workflows here, we're also reducing the friction between the operations and development teams, which is something that has been a real driver for automation adoption in the past also. The second thing that we're really adding with Ansible Tower on top of Ansible Engine is this control. So we have the option within Ansible Tower. You're seeing a snippet of a screenshot here from Tower, where customers, they have their library and their suite of automation that they've defined themselves to work with their infrastructure. And you can actually schedule and run these jobs at different times of day. You can have staggered runs or runs of jobs that happen based on the outcome of a previous job, these sorts of things. But really on top of that, the key point here is that we have centralized logging. So we can actually track and trace the outcome of a customer's automation all in one single place. This is quite a big deal, again, not just for accountability, but for auditing purposes, being able to identify where there's issues in the infrastructure, these sorts of things. Anything you can automate, from just creating a basic user to deploying a complete service, you can track and manage this all in one place. You can schedule it for another time. The customer doesn't even have to be there when it happens. And finally, knowledge. So we have this dashboard of visibility and compliance for all of a customer's automation, once again, in one place, fully logged, fully tracked. This makes it much easier for customers to identify where there's a problem with not just their automation, but perhaps their other pieces of infrastructure as well. It makes it much easier for customers to track how things are progressing. Perhaps these Ansible jobs, these playbooks are being triggered by a threshold, something like that. You can actually then see the things like resource usage as a result of increased capacity requirements, because you're seeing that your playbooks are being triggered more often, these sorts of things. And this, at this point, this is really where automation meets management. Okay, so with the bottom layer here, the light blue layer, these are the core components of Ansible. This is Ansible Engine. This is the base, base Red Hat offering. Ansible Tower, on top of that, as we've discussed, adds this control, this knowledge and delegation, and this becomes really a management platform for your automation. You're automating your automation to a certain point. And there's a great deal of crossover between both automation and management concepts behind them, but as well as the drivers and the reasons that your customers are going to be interested in one or the other. Automation it's really a more focused, specific concept, whereas IT management is a much broader, more generalized control of everything that's happening within a customer's infrastructure. So IT management, why are customers interested in this? We see that customers who are struggling with things like their stability within their environments, or perhaps their security or governance needs, as their infrastructure is growing, as their services are becoming more complex and are having to be deployed more regularly, and maybe even torn down more regularly as they scale back. Keeping a track of everything and being able to enforce security and governance across their environment becomes much more of a difficult task if you don't have a tool to manage this. And it's at this point that we see customers really looking into management tooling. And when we're talking about things like stability, service uptime and consistency are very important to your customers, particularly in production environments, because outages are very expensive and they really harm the relationships that your customers have with their end customers. Security, again, uptime is very important, and security has a very direct relationship with that. But even just things like their security accreditations and their insurance, customers need to know that their environment is consistent from a security perspective. Finally, governance, again, being able to standardize these software environments allows people to ensure that there's going to be minimal issues within those environments. As well, it really helps with preempting issues, and that at that point we start to talk about Red Hat Insights more than Satellite, but we'll get to that towards the end of the presentation. So as you see here, Red Hat Platform Management consists primarily of Satellite, Ansible, and Insights. We're going to talk about Satellite first. So what does Satellite do? What is it? Now, Red Hat products, as I'm sure many of you well know, they're generally a hardened enterprise-ready version of upstream open source community projects. Satellite itself is a conglomeration of several such open source projects that have been packaged together to provide the suite of functions that Satellite can offer. Satellite itself is it's a scalable platform designed to manage the patching, provisioning, and subscription management of your Red Hat infrastructure and the entire life cycle of the servers within it. On screen here, you can see the Satellite coat of arms, which really captures those 4 primary use cases. We're gonna investigate these one at a time. So software management. Satellite gives operators this real granular control over what software updates and packages they want to deploy, and to which servers and to when. So, for example, you might have rules in place that say I want to deploy the new updates to my development environment before my production environment. You might have a rule that says I don't want to deploy any new updates to environments that are running these legacy applications. You can define different groups of hosts within the customer's environment and have the different rules for patching and the different scheduling for patching relating to each one. This makes it also much easier to respond to vulnerabilities. On screen here, you see we're referencing Heartbleed and Shellshock. These were both 2 quite significant vulnerabilities that affected a huge group of people at the time. Probably every one of your customers would have felt the effects. I myself was a systems administrator at the time, and I had the painful task of addressing these problems without management infrastructure in place. And I can tell you that it was very, very time consuming and involved a lot of work, not just fixing the problem, but communicating with the end customers afterwards, and having a system that can do all of this for you, smooth things over without the interruption to service is, we really can't say enough what a difference that makes to customers. Being able to define your standard operating environments, so having control over what software appears where at all times, really makes it much easier to ensure that your applications and services are going to run the same way every time. And also being able to comply with security is much easier to do when you have this granular control over what software is going to appear on which servers. And then additionally with this, you do have the ability through the software management tooling to deploy any and all Red Hat infrastructure products, as well as third-party software within the infrastructure that's managed by Satellite. And this brings us on to subscription management. Subscription management alone is useful, but having a tool local to the customer infrastructure, i.e. packaged within Satellite, that can manage their subscriptions, their Red Hat subscriptions, when this is all integrated in a tool that can manage patching and a degree of automation, it makes it very convenient for customers to actually address their subscription needs. This subscription management opens Satellite up to being able to manage the full life cycle of servers. This is particularly when it's paired with our provisioning tooling within Satellite. Satellite itself, it does contain really two options for automation and provisioning. It has both Puppet and Ansible packaged within it. It has a kind of a stripped down version of the Ansible engine that we've talked about available within it. It can also do things with bare metal provisioning. Most organizations today, they'll have a mix of bare metal, virtual and cloud platforms. Satellite allows users to connect to all of these and gives them the ability to create virtual machines or virtual instances in clouds, to power on bare metal machines, and it also gives the ability to integrate all of these things into existing infrastructure with services like DNS and DHCP, as well as the identity platforms that your customer will be using. Things like Active Directory, I know, is a very common one for most customers. So this gives you the ability at the provisioning stage to automate all of these pieces that would usually be a multi-step manual process. Federated content delivery. So as an IT department that, like we've discussed, would have many workloads running possibly all around the world in different environments, this can lead to some real bandwidth issues when you're trying to push out not just updates, but even just requests for new servers, things like that. Satellite provides the option to have what we call a capsule server, essentially a proxy server, that allows users to take all that content that's already organized and curated for their systems and actually put it as close to those systems as possible. So this would, for example, save cost in terms of bandwidth if you're working in a public cloud that charges a customer for network usage. This saves time. If numerous systems are in a remote data center, it's much easier to pull content and software locally from a capsule server than it would be for a customer to, say, have to reach back to their local infrastructure and pull the content from there. Having these federated environments also makes it much easier for customers to meet their SLAs for their systems. New systems, they can be provisioned and patched local to that environment. And finally, discovery of non-provisioned hosts. Discovery is a means to set up networking infrastructure such that when new systems are brought in, you can just turn them on and those servers will show up in Satellite as new systems to be managed. And this leads us on to configuration management. So system configuration in Satellite allows users to define a desired state for their systems. We enable users to tell Satellite what that that desired state would look like, and Satellite will then calculate the best way to get there. This means that administrators, they don't have to write scripts for each and every action. Satellite actually understands which tools are being used in the environments based on analysis of those environments. And it can then be used to manage and make these changes such that your new systems are in the desired state that you've defined. It's the same with managing and remediating drift. So once you have this defined state that you wish your systems to be in, I think it's every 30 minutes or so is the default interval for satellite to check, but this can be obviously adjusted as required. Satellite will ask, what is my desired state? Are the machines that I'm managing in that state? And if not, satellite can remediate the issue and bring everything in line with the desired state. Again, there's options for this to be automated, for this to require some sort of administrative nod. It's a very flexible tool. We give complete control and options in every event we can. Types of things that might become different if you're looking at remediating drift. It might just be the contents of a configuration file, or it could be something more basic than that even. You might have a cluster of web servers, and one of the servers, the web server within it, is not running. So you only have 3 of your 4 web servers actually running at that point, and you have then a reduced availability and traffic capacity. Satellite would be checking every however long you've set the interval that the machines are in the desired state, and the desired state for a web server would be that it's running. So it would turn that back on for you. And finally, auditing and reporting. So not only does Satellite help to set up and maintain this desired state, it will keep a report and logs of when and what changes are made. Every check-in for every system is kept. Most of the time, these are fairly basic. However, if a change was made and then documented, it might provide a very clear audit trail of these changes, and this helps from both compliance and accountability. Again, being able to trace back what's gone wrong, what's been changed, and how to then, as a result, remediate that. So that's Satellite as an overview. There's other components within Satellite, really peripheral components that do some very nice things but aren't the core pieces. Things like enforcing different levels of security compliance through a software called OpenISCAP. This allows you to just flag things like versions of a package that might be that might be vulnerable. Again, we'll use the Heartbleed and Shellshock reference. Shellshock affected the bash packages of various versions and made it such that attackers could actually execute things that they shouldn't have had permission to do as guest users. With OpenISCAP, you could define the group of packages within bash that are vulnerable and actually have compliance rules in place to flag up when these packages are present on systems, such that Satellite could actually remediate the problem. Satellite also gives customers the ability to have multi-tenancy and multi-users, each with their own roles and responsibilities within Satellite. Building in the auditing and reporting capabilities, which vary depending on the specific item you want to audit and report on. You can have different users able to access these different items. And then also predictive analytics through Red Hat Insights, which we'll talk about now. So Red Hat Insights, what is it and what does it do? Red Hat Insights, it provides this highly scalable prescriptive analytics across fleet hybrid infrastructures, delivered as a software as a service offering, but it is packaged into Red Hat. Red Hat Insights takes advantage of Red Hat's industry expertise as a leader in open source software, as well as having access to our internal database of CVEs and vulnerabilities. And it can use this intelligence that it builds up over time through both analytics of the customer's own infrastructure and then any analytics that we've been able to pull and curate from other Insights users. What Insights will do, it will anonymize host information such that when it's reporting things back into Satellite or even back into Insights, if that's an option that the customer enables, we're then able to build up this kind of business intelligence of of what happens when a system's in one state and there is perhaps a vulnerability found in some software somewhere that is present on that system. Red Hat 85% of the time already has knowledge of vulnerabilities that affect customer systems, and we can now provide this knowledge direct to customers and then combine it with the automation within Ansible Tower so that within Satellite, in the interface where insights will be available, the customer can view the various problems and vulnerabilities that the analysis and scanning of through insights has managed to find in their infrastructure, and it can then use Ansible to actually suggest corrective playbooks and then automate these playbooks as and when the customer wishes to preemptively address these problems and these vulnerabilities. This at this point makes a huge difference to security and compliance, actually preemptively addressing these problems really for the first time before they can cause issues for customers. Makes an enormous difference to efficiency and uptime, as well as the SLAs that customers can provide to their end customers. So Red Hat Insights uses this intelligent data to pinpoint these technical risks, help IT resolve these problems before the business is affected. It's a very modern integrated platform. It supports operational analytics and automated resolution across both physical, virtual, and containerized platforms within public and private environments. This can be deployed anywhere. Satellite can be deployed as part of Satellite and then integrated back into Ansible Tower. So this is really the overview of both the automation and management components that make up the core of Red Hat platform management. As we've mentioned, there's a great deal of other management tooling that might be available within Red Hat's portfolio, but we expect that your customers are going to be most commonly interested in the three that we've talked about here. I said I would leave time for Q&A. I've left much more time than I planned on. But hopefully this has sparked some interest and some questions, and perhaps we can then talk about what I've shown here and other parts of the portfolio. Do we have any questions from the audience? I know I've gone through this a bit quick, so do let me know if you have questions. Of course, we're all muted, aren't we? One moment. Peter, we're any questions? Unmute everyone, please. Okay, you're all unmuted if you do have any questions. Okay then, so it looks like we don't have any questions from the audience. Having talked about automation management, both Ansible Tower and Satellite, do let me know if you have questions. Perhaps some will come to you after the call. My email address is jpatrick@redhat.com. We can have conversations both around what we've shown here, but perhaps other elements of the portfolio that you think the customers are actually interested in aside from these pieces. But hopefully this has been helpful to you, becoming just a bit more familiar with automation and its position in the industry and the things that Red Hat can do to address these things for customers. Nina, do you have anything to
add? Yeah, I can add a few things. So first of all, thank you, Josh. Great presentation. And just to inform everyone that this webinar has been recorded, and we can send out the recording as well as the materials afterwards. And just to promote the next webinar, once again, on the 11th of December, we'll have the next technical webinar about containers and microservices. So we sent out an invitation today, so please be in touch if you haven't received it. So, but otherwise, I don't have anything else to add. So
Thank you very much, Nina.
Thank you for your time. Yeah.
Thank you all. Please as well, if you have any feedback, perhaps you were looking for a more technical or a less technical presentation, do let me know. We're trying to gauge what's most useful for everyone. So anything you do have to add, that would be great. So thank you very much all.